Hi guys, today I figured that I might as well status reset because I happen to get a new staff and I wanted to get just the right amount of mind. So before we begin, I'd just like to note that I did this commentary after I finished resetting, so some of it might be a little bit off sync. I'll try not to be off sync though. And hopefully I can give you guys a decent explanation of what all the stats do, and that's why this counts as an episode of Onigiri Explained. So the first thing that you should do whenever you status reset is decide on the kind of character type you want. Personally, since I'm a axe user, I can only really use power or daring. Any of the other kinds will give me like too much of a loss in the power stat, which means that I am kind of not going to do damage if I do that. So basically I'm limited to these two choices. If I wanted to have a lot of self-sustain, I would probably go power, but I want a little bit more damage, well, to be specific, a little bit more critical rate, so I'm actually going to go with daring. So as you can see, we have 2167 skill points in total, and the first thing we're going to do is put 100 into power, because since we're using a power type weapon, we want as much affinity as possible. This will put us at the standard, what, 4844? Yeah, 4844, which is the maximum that a power type weapon can get without any like extra bonuses. Don't mind the lucky box, I just happened to notice I had one, so I opened it. Anyway, so the next thing we're going to do is either consider our dex and wisdom or consider our mind. Since in this case I'm actually resetting because I got a new staff, I'm not going to really bother adjusting my dex or wiz yet. The first thing I'm going to do here is actually make sure I have 75 total mind. This will allow me to perform resurrection. And I think that's the most basic part about being a team player, is having res, because if you don't have res or have it on another weapon, you're gimping yourself by using less weapon, or gimping your teammates by not keeping them alive. So anyway, what we do next is dex and wisdom. I'll explain exactly what each stat does at the end of this video, but just note for now that I am trying to get it so that I get 1 extra crit, and my next point in wisdom will cost half the number of status points that my next point in dex does. What this does is effectively optimize the two stats. I call this optimization because you're investing the least amount of possible stats for the next point in critical. In this video, I'm actually doing everything on the fly and not really doing the math ahead of time to figure out how much of each stat I should have. But that's because I'm aware that daring has a sweet spot. At this sweet spot, your next 2 points in wisdom will actually cost the exact same as putting 1 more point in dexterity, and you'll get that last crit. Like, it's just the perfect spot for anyone who uses power, and that's 62 base wisdom and 85 base dexterity. For your own build, feel free to adjust the amount of dex and wisdom you have if you want like more crit or more SP reduction when you're buffing yourself or whatnot, but this is just what I like. So the next thing that I'm going to do is adjust my mind once more. Mind and wisdom are fairly similar because both have 24/12 scaling on a stat with dex. In wisdom's case it's critical, and for mind it's actually cooldown reduction. So what we're going to do is make it so that our mind is equal to our wisdom, because once again that is a sweet spot. So this should be like kind of the template that you should use for any power weapon for an all-rounder build at least level 110. All adjustments done from now on are actually build specific, so they only really work for me. They won't really work for anyone else because this adjustment is done based on the enhancement of my staff. Because smelting has a lot of randomness associated with it, everyone's going to have a different enhancement value on their staff, and hence you're going to need like a slightly different mind value. So the adjustment that I do here is actually to get the attack stat I have with the staff out as close to a multiple of 1,000 as possible. Well, that is, you want to go very slightly over, but going over more would be kind of inefficient, so we're not going to do that. And I don't really think vid is a good stat. I'll explain why again later, but I am actually going to dump the rest of my status points into it because I don't have enough status points to make any further additions into Wisdom, Mind, or Dex give me really any bonuses at all, besides like a little bit of SP, which, yeah, that doesn't really matter. This more or less sums up my status build. This build works with any type of power-based weapon, and that's basically it. So sword, odachi, or axe. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is go over each stat and actually explain what they do, the benefits that they have, and in Vit's case, I'll also explain any detrimental effects that the status may come with. Please don't mind the fact that the video jumped. I just kind of needed something to put here. I'm not really sure what, but apparently someone's requesting more singing. God damn it, you guys, stop requesting singing. I'm not gonna sing. It sounds bad and I know it and I feel bad about it. Anyway, so let's go over the stats. Power is a stat that provides affinity for swords, odachi, or axes, and it also provides attack speed. You get 1 attack speed for every 12 points you have in power. The attack speed doesn't only scale with power, it also scales with dexterity. So if you have 24 points in dexterity, you'll get 1 point in power. It's important to note that the two stats don't scale separately. What I mean by that is, if you have 6 power and 12 dex, you'll actually still get 1 attack speed. This applies for more or less every single other stat, so I'm just going to put it out there now and assume that you know it applies to crit, cooldown, and everything else. So the next stat, the vitality stat, is the only stat that really has a detriment associated with it. So everyone knows, well, I guess everyone would be able to guess from the stat's name that vitality gives you vitality, which is HP. And in other words, it gives you survivability. This is nice and all, but you don't really get that much HP even from maxing out Vit. The better way to get HP is to get a little bit of Vit and then get a lot of Faded Contractor ornaments that have max percentage HP on them. Vit also gives you a little bit of physical and magic defense for every point that you have in it. It'll give you more physical than magic though. But that's basically everything good about Vit. The bad thing about Vit is that it increases your HP recovery. This sounds counterintuitive for more reasons than one, but if you have more HP recovery as an axe specifically, you are not going to be able to maintain your maximum double-edged cut damage for that long. For every other weapon, it's going to reduce the amount of time that you spend under 50% HP, so you won't be able to get the bonuses from your level 105 or your level 117 Magatama for as long. Well, you will be able to get them back if you sacrifice or get hit, but the latter is obviously not something you want to do, and you don't always have sacrifice on a readily available weapon. So if you want as little HP regeneration as possible, which I believe is 1% of your max health every couple of seconds, try to leave as few points in Vit as you can. Putting points in Vit doesn't actually increase the percentage of your HP that regens, but it adds a flat number to each regen tick. Note that I'm talking about your total Vit here, not your base Vit. So since I have 13 base plus 18 bonus vitality, I'm going to have a total of 31. So I'm going to get the 3rd tier increase on my HP regeneration. This isn't actually really that much worse than what I could have had, because even if I did not add any points in Vit, I would still have the 2nd tier from base stats alone. Note that the tiers actually scale up non-linearly, so let's go into what I mean by that. If you have 89 Vit and you get 1 more point, you get into 90 Vit, you are going to go up a tier, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going to get the same increase as somebody who had 99 Vit going into 100. So every tier gives you a lot more than the previous tier. This means that it's safe to have a small amount of points invested into Vitality, since it won't really bump up your HP regen by that much. However, it'll still give you quite a bit of max HP. This means that Vitality is still fairly beneficial at low numbers, and its detriment only starts showing up when you have high values. So the next stat is Wisdom. Wisdom, abbreviated as Wiz. Wiz is a fairly interesting stat because it can actually mislead you. This is because the game says Wisdom gives you SP recovery, but it doesn't. This is actually a mistranslation. SP recovery is supposed to say SP charge rate, so having SP recovery increases the rate at which you gain SP back when you are holding shift with a staff or a wand. So Wisdom does not directly increase the rate at which you recover SP. It does it indirectly though. This is because Wisdom increases your maximum SP pool, and players will regen 1% of their maximum SP every couple seconds. Mind further increases this regeneration, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. As I mentioned when resetting my stats, Wisdom will give you critical rate. To be specific, it scales 1 per 24. 24 Wisdom will give you 1 crit. The final and most important thing that Wisdom gives you is SP reduction. Note that SP reduction only applies if you're wearing a wand or a staff. However, having 100 Wisdom will give you 100 SP reduction when using one of these two weapons. So everyone uses a staff to buff themselves, rapid storm, meditate, whatever, right? If you have 100 Wiz, this is going to cost 100 less mana per spell. It's really nice. Not mana, SP. Yeah, I like calling it mana. Like HP recovery with Vitality, SP reduction from Wisdom scales non-linearly. You can find more info about this on the stats page on the wiki. Like Wisdom, Mind also provides you with SP recovery, a stat you'll never use. But unlike Wisdom, Mind also gives you real SP recovery. There's another table on the stats page on the wiki that shows exactly how much SP recovery that every extra 10 points in Mind will give you. It's pretty nice. It can give you 74 total every couple of seconds. This, combined with the fact that Mind gives you a lot of total SP, is really nice to have. And besides that, Mind also scales 1 to 24 with cooldown reduction. This game's last stat is the Master Race stat, Dex. Dex scales 1 to 24 with attack speed, 1 to 12 with cooldown reduction, and 1 to 12 with critical rate. Dex is the best stat in the game. The end. Oh yeah, and before I forget, Vit gives Spear Affinity, Wisdom gives Wand Affinity, Mind gives Staff Affinity, Dex gives Twin Sword and Bow Affinity, Power gives Axe, Sword, and Odachi Affinity, and also gives bonus affinity to everyone other than Sword, Odachi, and Axe. Yeah! This, combined with the fact that Dex is OP and some other stuff like titles, makes Twin Sword one of the most powerful classes in the game in terms of sheer attack numbers. I also forgot to mention that Mind gives Vit. I mean, what? No, Mind doesn't give Vit. What the fuck? I mean, Mind gives defense. Mind gives more magic defense than physical defense, though. But defense isn't really too relevant. If you hit a really absurdly high threshold, you can get 15% damage reduction, but you're still going to die in one hit anyways, because some bosses hit 800k multiple times, and the HP cap is 50k. Good luck. On another random side note, P attack speed is a mistranslation. The stat is just attack speed. There's no physical or magic associated with it, and attack speed affects all attacks, like skills and basic attacks. Oh yeah, and always max your base stat first, like the stat that gives you affinity. At lower levels, you shouldn't really be touching anything else unless you really know what you're doing, because you'll be gimping your own damage by a lot. Okay, I think that covers everything for this episode of Onigiri Explained, so I may have missed a few things because there's a lot of information regarding status, and I don't make a script because I'm lazy. But I hope this helped. Good luck.